Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon or morning, depending on where you're coming from. We're about a minute early on the start time, so we're going to give everybody another minute or so to file in, and then we'll get started. All right. Thanks for joining us. Hello to those that are just jumping in. We are just a little early, so we're going to give everybody about another 30 seconds to a minute, and then we'll get moving on the presentation. Thanks for joining us. All right. On that note, I think we are good to go. We are recording this as we have been for all of our webinars, so no need to worry if you're coming in late. So thanks again for joining us. With the launch of Ballot Bliss and the popularity that we've seen so far, we have been hosting an educational series of webinars aimed at providing insight into some of the most common types of community association related voting scenarios. Today, we're going to walk you through pretty much everything new that we've built at Ballot Bliss this year, and more importantly, why we built it. Every feature you'll see today started with a problem one of our clients or more brought to us, whether it's a compliance question from an attorney, from a community that couldn't hit quorum no matter what they tried, or a resident who got confused trying to vote. The first half of the presentation will be mostly educational, and we'll tie it in with a demonstration towards the end that shows you all the new features we've built. We'll also be offering a promotion after the demonstration, so we do hope that you stick around for the entire thing if you can. Real quick, before I jump in, for any who are unfamiliar with Ballot Bliss, our vision is to help organizations make the transition to e-voting effortlessly through our simple and secure online voting platform. We were founded in 2024, but we're partnered with Polara Software, which is a well-known association management software that's been in the industry for going on 17 years now. We're also a member with CAI and a number of other industry-specific organizations. We were just at the CAI National Convention last month, so some of you may have met us there, but we do appreciate you joining us today. A little bit about me. My name's Shay. I've been with the HOA and property management industry for over 9 years now. I've onboarded clients with over 90 plus communities in their portfolios. I've worked closely with many associations that have recently conducted their elections with Ballot Bliss and helped their communities achieve quorum. Before this, I worked with Fidelity Investments for a number of years, and it also happens that our CEO and our lead developer were with Fidelity for over 10 years prior to starting Polara. So we do bring an enterprise level mentality to everything that we do and build. But that's enough about me. A quick look at what we'll cover today. We're going to start by talking about the challenges managers and boards are facing right now, and then look at what traditional voting is actually costing associations. From there, we'll get into how the industry is shifting, and then I'll walk you through a live demo of how Ballot Bliss is adapting to boost participation, compliance, and efficiency. We'll then open it up for the Q&A. If you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to drop them in there as we go, and we'll be circling back to them at the end. The voice function on your mics is turned off for the duration of the webinar. Also, as I mentioned, a full recording will be emailed to everyone within a couple of days regardless. So before we get into any of our features, I wanted to start with what you've actually told us from the past webinars. Over the past year, during our webinars, we've asked managers and board members just like you about the challenges they're running into. So the next few slides aren't actually our opinion of what's hard about running elections. It's coming directly from people doing this job every day. So this chart shows how past webinar attendees responded when we asked which challenges their community has run into. And by far, the biggest one, at just over 70%, was struggling to reach quorum. Quorum failures usually mean a redo. And a redo means more printing, more postage, and more staff hours spent chasing the same vote a second or even third time around. Then, right behind that, about half of respondents pointed to the high cost and time burden of managing paper ballots. Smaller but still meaningful numbers include residents questioning the fairness of an election and difficulty proving compliance if a vote is ever challenged. These two challenges are important too, because even a small percentage of disputed elections can turn into a very expensive and time-consuming situation for a manager or board. Next, when we asked how residents currently cast their votes, about 63% of respondents said paper only, another 31% use a mix of paper and digital, and only 6% have moved to online voting exclusively. So when you add those first two groups together, well over 90% of communities are still handling at least some portion or their entire portion of their election on paper, which means the majority of the industry is still absorbing costs that can be dramatically reduced with an online or hybrid process. Think about what that actually looks like in practice. Someone on your team is printing ballots, stuffing envelopes, tracking what's been mailed, waiting for what comes back, and then manually counting and reconciling everything by hand, often under a deadline. This shows how much manual effort the traditional process demands before you even get a result. So to be clear, there's nothing wrong with paper ballots on their own, and plenty of residents will always prefer that option. But when paper is the only option available, the entire administrative burden falls on you and your team, election after election. And that's exactly the gap that we're trying to help associations close. So once the votes are in, the work isn't over. And this data shows that clearly. About 27% of residents said validating ballots and documenting results is their biggest headache, and almost the same percentage struggle with storing and archiving materials securely. It makes sense that these two would be the biggest challenges because they're both manual, time-sensitive tasks. Then, close behind that, roughly 20% said communicating results and addressing resident questions is difficult. And then another 19% pointed to ensuring compliance with state laws. That combination is worth thinking about because it means even after an election closes, managers are still fielding questions from residents who want to understand the outcome, while also trying to make sure every step of the process can hold up if someone challenges it later. When ballots are validated and archived manually, there's more room for error, whether that's a miscount, a missing document, or a record that's hard to locate months later. And that error carries a cost, both in the time it takes to fix and in the risk it creates if something is ever questioned down the line. So let's pull this all together. Modern community associations are facing three challenges right now. First, there's simply an intense amount of paperwork. A rise in regulatory oversight, including changing state regulations, whether it involves eligibility, tracking opt-in consent, or handling proxies, often clash with manual tracking methods that were not designed for a high level of scrutiny. Second, when voting options are limited to paper or in-person only, it ends up excluding residents who travel, who live out of state part of the year, or who are just busy, and that leads to disengagement and lowered participation. And then third, without a strong audit trail, every election carries a certain level of risk. A single homeowner can challenge a result, and that can mean a costly redo if a real hit to community trust, as well as a hit to community trust. A few things are happening across the industry all at once. On the legislative slide, many states are modernizing their election requirements. 42 states now allow the use of online voting and vary in the level of strictness. In a number of states, such as Florida, associations now need documented member consent before they can send electronic ballot invites. The specifics vary quite a bit from state to state, so if you have a question about your particular state's requirements, that's something worth confirming with your association's attorney. At the same time, management companies are being asked to take on more doors without adding additional staff. So efficiency has really become a retention strategy for managers rather than just a nice to have. And then homeowners themselves now expect a one-click experience, similar to what they get from their bank or from online shopping. If the voting experience feels confusing or hard, participation plummets. So as we designed this year's features, we organized everything around three primary pain points that we are helping communities solve. The first and the biggest is compliance. Every new feature starts with the question of, does this help boards create a defensible process for their community? And I apologize, I skipped a slide here. I might have, oop, here we go. Sorry about that, guys. The second is participation by design. Voting should feel as easy as anything else your residents already do online. So we work to remove friction at every step, from the invite to the ballot to the reminders. And then the third is efficiency at scale. Managers shouldn't need to add headcount just to handle more communities. We reduce the manual work so your team's time goes towards your residents, not paperwork. And everything I'm about to show you ties back to one of these three. And then, of course, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how this works in our system. Let me just pop over to our app. So here is Ballot Bliss, if you haven't seen it yet. We have our fictitious Cherry Hill condominiums here as our example. Some things to note real quick. You notice that it's all branded color schemes. We can do all this for you as part of our base package. It helps, increase authenticity and engagement when residents are going into the system. So the first thing I'm going to show you is what we've done with regard to tracking opt-in and eligibility for residents. So under our community drop down here is our people section. This is where all the people that are in this community reside. And you'll see it's already, filtered to show me owners and tenants. We do support those different user types, such as, tenants, other occupants, that kind of thing, if you're using us for surveys, polls, and so forth. But the thing I wanted to hone in on is right here. We did include the ability to sort these, but if I hop into someone's profile, I can just click their name here. You'll see we have this voter information area in their profile. This is where, as an administrator, I can set their opt-in status, opt-out status, as well as eligibility. And these will be enforced when voting invitations are sent, and I'll show that to you in a slide in a few moments. And, something to note, we are actually going to be releasing very soon, in the next month at the most, a new feature, and I have a sneak peek of it here for you guys. Here's a screenshot of what it's going to look like from the same page I was just showing you. We're going to be introducing a way for you to send out e-consent requests through our system. And of course, you can filter to only send to those who haven't opted in yet. So let me pop back over. So some other things I wanted to show here. So on the eligibility tracking, so this does prevent them from participating in electronic voting. It is similar to opt-out, but it's different in that this will override anything. Sometimes there's a need to just track opt-out and still let them receive the vote. This will prevent them receiving anything at all related to the vote. Right. Looks like I'm skipping slides here. I apologize, guys. All right. So for those of you managing more than one community, the next piece is going to matter a lot. I'll show you how you can bring a new community onto the platform, how much clearer the ballot setup steps are now, and a few smaller but helpful enhancements like duplicate question detection that makes building a ballot faster and less error prone. And so back over to our demo community here. If I go back into the ballots area, And actually, I'm skipping a step here. Okay, here we go. So this is the new thing we just added. We added the ability. So the idea here is that if you're an inspector of elections or a management company and you are looking to bring on more communities to our system, we do support a portfolio level aspect to it. Not a lot of other systems do this. They'll make you create brand new accounts for each community in your portfolio, whereas ours lets you actually designate which managers have access to which communities and be able to add new communities right from the same dashboard. So this lets you go in, add the information about the community, and then the next step would be to actually import the data, which we are going to be making something that our clients can do right now. We do that for them. However, we provided this tool called the XLS Validator, which also is right here. It's under the settings area. That basically just drives you through it. So you drop in your Excel format or CSV style resident list. And I have a little test example here to show you. It asks you what the user or what the header row is, has you designate which fields apply to which ones in our system, and then basically at the end it spits out a clean, ready for import spreadsheet that, again, at the moment we would import for you, but very soon as well would be something that you guys can just do on your own too. And then some other things that we did as well. So again, this is all based off feedback that we got. We kind of cleaned up the flow of things. So now you notice there's numbers here listed, kind of guides you through the first step being to build, the settings of your ballot, which is where you give it its name, who should be voting on it, any kind of restrictions like one vote per unit or secret balloting, that kind of stuff. This is also where you can enforce the e-voting opt-ins. I mentioned that if they're being tracked, it'll be something that you can make sure is enforced when it's done, start date, end date, that kind of thing. And then it moves you through the steps of the progressions of building your ballot, the next step being to actually create the ballot. And in here, we have done some quality of life enhancements, again, based off feedback that we got, such as, and actually, let me just jump over to a different example here. So here's an example of an election and budget approval. The way it works is we have components that you can drop in, different components depending on what you're asking. For example, a multi-choice for an election, whereas like a single choice would be for just a yay or nay amendment or budget approval. And then below you'll see, here's our election with some images and links to separate bios. Here's the question for the election, and then here's a budget approval. And one of those things that we did is we made it so that you can't accidentally ask the same question twice. So for example, approval of annual budget, if I went and dropped in a single choice component of that and tried to give it the same name, it's going to go, oh, wait a minute, you're trying to ask the same question again. So it's just a safeguard, again, so that you're not getting bad data at the end. Make your life easier. So the next thing is communications, and strong communication is honestly one of the most important components for reaching quorum. So let me show you what we've changed there. I'm going to show you how you can send targeted messages only to residents who haven't voted yet, or by their opt-in and eligibility statuses. We also separated voting invites from general announcements to make it easier for you if you, determine which type of message you need to send and when, and how homeowner replies can now be routed directly to the right person or inbox for your organization. All right. And so jumping into our communications tab here. So this is the next step after presumably you've built your ballot, you've given it the settings and the restrictions that you want. Now, the next step would be to send out communications, track those communications regarding the ballot, right? So the voting invitations are the ones that will include that link that the residents need to be able to cast their vote. And what we've done is we've made it so that it detects all of the settings for you, so that you don't really have to think about it when you're going to send it. So it automatically knows not to send it to those who have opted out. If you check that checkbox in the setting area, only sending to those who haven't voted yet, right? Things such as eligibility, it's all automatically detected in our system. And then all you have to do is just basically put the subject of the message. If you want to send it as a text, an email, you can put your own message in there to be included, and it'll automatically send it to those who it needs to send to, or it should be sent to. As I was mentioning, you can also now send a standard announcement. So that's the voting invite, and underneath of it, send announcement. And the idea here is that this does not include that voting link. This would be for like pre or post ballot notifications or communications related to that ballot that you want to inform them of prior to the voting period, that kind of thing. And as you can see, we've added in filter options for that so that if you want or need to make sure it only gets sent to those who have opted out or in, that kind of thing, ineligibility only, that you can focus on those groups if needed. And then as I was mentioning on the replies, so now we have it set up so that you can designate a certain person to receive those replies when you're sending the communication. And I believe that's supposed to be right in here. So right at the bottom here, so we do track replies. It's an optional thing if you want us to, but the way it works is, they can reply back to those emails, whether it's the invite or general announcement. And you can tell it if you have multiple managers or if you want to make like one inbox for all replies that's, monitored across your team, that kind of thing. You can tell it where those replies should go to in the system. And then those end up back in the communications area that we were just looking at there, right down here. So those are some of the enhancements we made in the communications area. Next, we'll talk about some crucial features that I know help a lot of boards and managers I talk to. I'll walk you through the election setup report, which lets you share exactly how an election was configured with your attorney or board before it goes live. I'll also show you our enhanced audit logs, which create a timestamp tamper-proof record of every action taken. And then the election summary report, which gives you a professional shareable outcome report while still protecting homeowner privacy. So moving back over to our ballot admin area. We're just going to use our annual election and budget approval as the example here. So let's say that you were just beginning to build your ballot. You've set up your settings. You've created the ballot form itself. But now you want to get the attorney's approval or the board's approval that everything looks good before you do anything else. So that's where this ballot setup report comes into play. And this can be sent directly from our system right to the attorney's email, or you can send it to yourself right from the system. And I'm going to pull those up in a moment. The other report that I was mentioning is the summary report. This is a report that shows up when you've unsealed the results. So this is meant to be something that you're sending at the end, potentially, as the way to verify the results with the board. And that shows up right here in the results section, which you can see we show in both chart and table format. And I'll go ahead and send that to myself as well. And those both should be waiting for me in my inbox now. So here's the setup report. So basically it outlines all those settings that I was just showing you in the settings section. It does have a actual printout of the ballot itself, and this gets put into a PDF format that you can attach and send to those who need to see it. And then the summary report has the same thing, but it's got the results mixed in too. So it shows all the settings. It shows the charts with the results. It shows the audit log, which I hadn't shown you guys, but this is also something that we do. We do track all administrative access to the system when, results were unsealed. In this case, this was for a not secret ballot in our systems, which administrators can delete results if needed, and it does track which results were deleted and timestamps it by which administrator that did it. If it was a secret ballot, they wouldn't be able to do that because you can't see who voted for what. But we do keep track of that as well on the audit trail for anything that's done. And then, of course, the ballot itself in that report too. So beyond what's brand new this year, I also want to give you a quick summary of the main things our clients consistently tell us they value most. You can capture online votes, proxies, and mailed ballots all in one place, so nothing lives in 3 different systems. You get real-time audit trails that track every vote and action as it happens, which means accountability isn't something you have to reconstruct after the fact. You also get accurate outcomes without compromising resident privacy if you have truly secret ballots enabled. Professional charts and summaries you can hand to your board with confidence, and post-election communications that respects each resident's preferred channel and language. These are the fundamentals that make the newer features helpful day to day. And on that note, I would love to hear from you guys. And let me just launch this poll. Which features would be most valuable to you? And we give everybody about 20, 30 seconds. We do appreciate you. As you can see, we do actually take your feedback into account. This entire webinar was based off of feedback that we've gotten from previous webinar participants. So if you guys wouldn't mind providing your input, we do appreciate it. And as I'm seeing the results come in, it looks like the most valuable one, voter opt-in and eligibility management. That's good because that's what we're kind of focusing on for new stuff. Everybody is saying that. That's interesting. That's good. Because that's exactly, like I said, what we're working on right now. So I'm going to give everybody another 10 seconds. Awesome. Okay. So everybody said voter opt-in and eligibility. So I think I know, I got a little bit of a beat on the crowd that we have in this webinar. So can tell that that's what you guys are looking for. So thanks again for your participation. So now I could keep telling you why we built these things, of course, but I think it's more powerful to hear it from the communities that are actually using them. And to do that, this is a testimonial from a client that is with First Service after we helped their association reach quorum for the first time, basically since the community was created like over 20 plus years ago. They came to us at a particularly high stakes moment. They needed to pass 10 separate amendments simultaneously. If they could not reach quorum, none of the amendments could pass. And several of them had real operational and financial implications for the community. Using Ballot Bliss, the management team was able to use real-time progress charts to keep the board informed as votes came in. They sent daily reminders to residents who had not yet voted to boost the participation. And the result is that they were able to pass 9 of the 10 amendments in that single meeting. And one of those amendments actually reduced the approval threshold required for future amendments, which basically paved the way for easier process in the future. So here's a testimonial from one of our clients that's been using our voting now for a while. They actually started with us before the company launched when we were still with our parent company. They've seen an 80% turnout in their last several elections due to the convenience that they've had of doing it online. So that's just an overall successful situation there. And here's one more testimonial that we actually just received last week that shows how tough some amendment votes can be to pass. Copper Creek of Riverview needed 30% homeowner approval for a governing document amendment with around 280 homeowners. That meant they needed roughly 85 approvals. They used our electronic voting platform with real-time monitoring. They sent reminder emails to residents who hadn't voted yet and customized their ballot to fit the amendment's specific requirements. And of the roughly 85 approvals they needed, only about 10 came in on paper. With support from our team along the way, the amendment passed and was officially recorded. Their secretary and treasurer, Jack, told us that Ballot Bliss made the difference between success and failure for their amendment, and that he doesn't believe they would have gotten the required approval without it. So it was another successful situation. So let's put the traditional approach and the digital approach side by side. On the traditional side, we're seeing 63% of communities still relying on paper-only voting and over 70% struggling to reach quorum. Results can take 5 to 7 days to compile, and there's no real-time audit trail to refer back to if a result gets challenged. On the digital side, based on the communities we've worked with, like the Princeton Greens example I just shared, we're seeing participation rates around 80% and quorum reached on the first try in 95% of cases. Results are available instantly as soon as the election closes, and every single action is logged automatically. So if this feels like the right fit, here's exactly what the process looks like. First, you'd book a free online consultation, and my team member, Samita, is going to drop that link in the chat here in just a second. Then we'll take the time to understand your community's specific situation before recommending anything. From there, we handle your onboarding. We'll import your community data and provide training and support along the way so you feel confident before your first election. Once you're set up, residents cast their ballots in seconds via an email or text invite with no login required on their end. You can even send paper ballot invites for those who want it. Basically, it's a PDF that you can print and gives them the instructions on how to place their vote online electronically through our system. And then you can start to see the impact, which is higher participation, reduced cost, and more trust from your residents, and the ability to move faster on important community decisions. So I'd encourage anyone interested to grab a time on that calendar, even if you're just exploring options right now. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we are having a limited time offer. If you sign up before September 15th, you'll lock in a 20% discount. And there's no pressure to use it right away. You can pay now, and you have up to a full year from purchase to actually use your ballot. So it makes a great option if you're planning ahead for your next election cycle rather than needing something immediately. And again, that deadline is September 15th of this year. And last poll here, one more quick question for you guys, and then we'll get to the Q&A here in just a moment. And it would be helpful for me to know what your next step is. That way I can make sure to follow up if needed. So again, I'll give everybody about 20, 30 seconds here, and we do appreciate you participating in these. Okay, it looks like we have a good mixture of people in here. Most of you, okay, some that are already clients of ours, we thank you for being with us and trying to learn more about the product. A few are wanting to share this with their boards or their manager. At least one person's not ready, but that's fine. At least you're out there looking into things, so makes sense. Give everybody another 5 to 10 seconds here if you haven't answered yet. Awesome. Okay. Again, thank you guys so much for participating in these. They are truly helpful for us as we continue to develop our product. So thank you. In addition to the recording and everything, we offer 2 models because different communities have different needs and resources. So basically, the self-service plan gives you full access to the Ballot Bliss platform which includes creating your own ballots, managing voters, sending those notices, tracking quorum in real time, and getting access to the end of election summary reports. Basically, you manage the process on your own timeline, and it's designed to be intuitive enough that you do not need a technical background to use it effectively. The platform also includes plenty of resources to help you along the way. We have had several clients create their own ballots, such as elections and surveys, without our help at all. And that just shows you how easy it is to use our platform. The managed plan is for communities or management companies that might not have the time and want a hands-off approach. Basically, we handle voter list setup as part of the base cost, and then we have add-on services available for things like building your ballot, reaching out, in reminders, as well as we can review and inspect your ballot before it goes live for any kind of errors or issues. And these add-ons provide you, with the options to get the specific help that you need when you need it. One thing I hear from managers early in conversations with us is a concern about implementation, specifically about whether adding a new platform is going to create more work than before it reduces it. And I want to address that directly. So every Ballot Bliss customer gets a dedicated onboarding team that handles your initial setup and trains your staff before your first election. You're not dropped into a help center and left to figure it out on your own. We have responsive technical support. It's available throughout the week, and we're available by phone as well. On the infrastructure side, Ballot Bliss runs on Amazon Web Services, which has a 99.9% uptime with bank-level security protocols. Elections run 24/7 with real-time updates, which means residents can vote at whatever time works for them. And just to leave you with a sense of what communities are seeing when they move to Ballot Bliss, here are a few more recent customer testimonials. Those are the outcomes we work towards with every community, management company, or inspector that we partner with. And on that note, I do want to open it up for the questions. So if you haven't already, I do encourage you to drop those into the Q&A panel, and I'll do my best to get to as many as possible. If we don't answer your question in here, I will make sure to follow up separately afterwards. You can also reach out to us directly at sales@ballotbliss.com or call us at 877-277-7590, and we're happy to continue the conversation that way as well. So let me pull up the Q&A and see what we have. Okay. Okay, so someone asked, what happens to residents who don't want to vote online? And so let me just hop back over here to my screen. So I did mention that, our system is meant to kind of combine everything into one area so that you're not tracking your paper ballots and ballots that are cast at the meeting in separate places. And the way that works with ours is that in the participation tab, which, by the way, you can see on any ballot, regardless whether it's secret or not, you can see participation. You can see who has and hasn't voted in our system. And there's also a manually add function. Now, I do want to clarify here that for a non-secret ballot, you can easily go in, select, search who it is, select which units you're voting on their behalf for, place the vote on their behalf, and it will show up in the system that it was done as the proxy name of the administrator that cast it on behalf of that resident. So you do have an audit of the fact that it was done by the manager and not by the resident themselves. On the secret ballot side, it still will let you do this, but unfortunately, again, that there's no way for us to allow you to vote on someone's behalf without knowing who you're voting for. So it's a bit of a gray area there. If your state has rules about secrecy, then you might consult with your attorney about how that would work. Otherwise, a lot of our clients that have that, where they're using us for a secret ballot, they will just take the digital result at the end, and then whoever does the physical, ballots, and they just combine them into one at the end to get the final result. But good question. Let me hop back over a few questions. Let's see. Two questions from the same person, and I'll try to bang them out at the same time. So when a community is set up, can more than one person be assigned to that community and receive responses? Yes, absolutely. Our system is, as I mentioned at the beginning, it is meant to accommodate managers that are managing multiple communities or multiple managers managing communities. So the idea is that, so for example, in this community, you can see we have our Matt manager, Miriam as two administrators. I can go in and I can add in additional managers right from here. Super easy to do. And then they'll have the same access as you as an administrator. There's also a way to designate which managers see which communities. So if you have a full portfolio, right, and this manager only deals with 3 of those communities, you can make sure that when they log in, they're only seeing those 3 communities. And then the other question from the same person is, I heard you mention text messaging. Can the program send a text message reminder that they need to vote versus email or both? Yes, absolutely. So the text works in the same way as the email, and both of them, what they do is they create a unique link for each resident. So it's not something that can be reused. It's a unique link that's generated and a code. When they click the link, it brings them to a page where it's going to ask them to enter the last 4 characters of the code that's on the text or the email. Once they do, then it'll bring them directly to the ballot to vote. Again, no registration process, no logging in necessary. And that goes for the initial batch of invitations as well as any reminders that you send out after the fact as well. Another question, as units are being bought and sold, the owner roster needs to be updated. Who has access to the database to make those changes? The property manager, the board, or the president? So good question. So that's kind of a multifaceted question because whoever set up as administrator has the ability to make those updates. So, you can give those rights to a board if the board is self-administering a ballot, but typically you just want to have the people, the managers that are administrating that ballot as the ones that have that kind of capability, but it's done from the same area. So, in the people section, let's just say that, Theo was moving out of his unit and you want to move the new unit owner in there. I would just go into his profile. There's a unit and account area, and then there's a move out, create new account option right here. This walks you through step by step to bring the new, owner into the unit and move that person out. And another question, by definition, is there a difference between electronic and online voting? That's an interesting question. And I wonder if that's in context to like legal, and I don't want to answer it in a way that could make us seem liable, but I don't personally think that there is. I mean, online, kind of refers to the fact that you're doing it through an electronic system, but there's also the question of, like electronic balloting that you can do in physical, like they have for presidential elections, right, where you do it electronically, but it's in person. I think the term that most states use is electronic. Online voting, I think, could be misconstrued, but again, that's probably something to check with your attorney if it's a question of, how you legally portray it as a system. We call ourselves online voting software, of course, but electronic also works. Okay, let me see if there's any other questions that I've dropped in there. How does secret ballots work? Okay. So just to clarify, when we say secret, what we mean is that we're detaching the who from the what. Basically, no one, including us as the developer, can see who voted for what in that ballot if that setting is enabled. One thing that sets us apart from a lot of our competitors is that we don't just hide that result. A lot of other services might tell you that it's secret, but really what they're doing is they're kind of hiding the results. And that if, say they were subpoenaed or something like that, they could still go back in their back end and pull the records to see who voted for what. We took, because we're working with states like Florida and California that are very strict about that kind of thing. So our developers spent a considerable amount of time to make sure that ours was foolproof, that once the vote is cast on a secret ballot, that it does in fact separate that information into two separate tables, and those tables never touch each other after that. So truly secret is what we call it. Okay, and that looks like all the questions that came in through the Q&A. We'll be reaching out after this anyways to everybody with the recording. So if you have additional questions, you can definitely feel free to respond, or again, reach right out to us at support@ballotbliss.com, and we're happy to answer questions there too. Thank you guys so much for spending your afternoon or morning, depending upon where you are, with me. And we hope to hear from you again. All right, thanks and have a good day.